guys, I'm back on my YouTube channel, and not just on my channel but in New York. As you can see, I have my apartment background, the usual that you see. I don't know if you've seen it, but just saying, I'm back in New York. I'm a New Yorker again. Just for your information, I went to the Philippines back in December 10th, and I just got back about 2 days ago, January 8th, here in New York. And so I know a lot of people have been asking how the process was like going back home during a pandemic, and I know a lot of people are still not comfortable of traveling, but the protocols have changed. Traveling has changed in general, so I hope this video would be helpful for all Filipinos out there who plan to go back home and who also are in the Philippines and checking out what the protocols would be going back in New York or in the States in general. I know recently there was a travel ban from in the Philippines on different countries, but I think residents or Filipino citizens or OFWs are still allowed to go back. The protocols may still be different, but this is what I've experienced when I came to the Philippines back in December, early first week of December. So I'll just outline all the information that you guys may need, but it is also best to check out the protocols on the airline that you'll be flying with going to the Philippines. Alright, so without further ado, I'll start. So I'll start with telling you why I went to the Philippines in the first place despite the pandemic. So I went to the Philippines because I've been working in the States for a year and a half. By now it's been a year and 7 months, I believe. I was planning to go back way back in June, which was my first year of working here in the States. But since the pandemic strike in March, I just not canceled, but I converted my ticket to a voucher and just waited a little bit more time and actually converted it into a ticket again. So it wasn't until when my brother, who came to the States back in July or June, and then went back to the Philippines in September, that I knew that travel protocols are a little bit lighter. Before the Philippines require a 14-day quarantine for people who are from different countries going to the Philippines, but from September onwards, they just needed a negative test results, and then you can actually go home to your family. So I told my brother that I'll wait a little bit longer, just to be sure that there are no other protocols that I need to catch an eye on. So I waited and decided that I'll go home in December. So I waited for my job to give an approval for me to go on a 3-week vacation during the Christmas period, the holiday period in the Philippines. So I was happy that they approved it, so I'm set to go to the Philippines in December. So here are the things that you have to prepare before you go to the Philippines. Number 1, I have my notes here just to make sure that I don't miss anything. And shout out, it's a Cattleya notebook. I bought it when I was back because I just love how the paper feels. Look at that. Anyway, too much blabber. I am a stationery nerd, so apologies. But okay, so there are 4 things that you have to prepare before you fly to the Philippines. Number 1 is a flight booking. I flew with PAL, so it's a straight flight from New York to the Philippines. And they require 1, a pre-booked hotel accommodation for your quarantine. and then a hotel transfer to transport you from the airport to the hotel, because no one can pick you up once you get there. And then lastly is a QR code. So before your flight, some people do it hours before their flight. I did it a day before my flight. I have to fill in the health declaration form, which Paul provided a link for, and they once you fill that in, they will send you a QR code a few minutes after. The turnaround time is quite fast, so you can fill it in hours before your flight. And some people actually check in with PAL and they have like a QR where you can scan it and fill in the form while you're in the check-in counter. So once you have that you're set to fly. And also, just a disclaimer, once you get to the Philippines, you'll get tested for COVID. So if you want to be 100% sure that you'll get tested negative once you get there, maybe get tested before you fly. I didn't, because I pre-quarantined myself before my flight for about 2 weeks, just to be sure that I won't get it. And so yeah, so that's what I did, and now I'm set to fly. So going to JFK, you need to make sure that you have, 1, a face mask, and 2, a face shield. So you don't need a face shield in the airport, but you need it when you get inside the plane. PAL is very strict with that guideline, and make sure, this is one mistake that I did. I didn't brought a lot of face mask, and you'll be in a 15-hour flight, so make sure you have an extra face mask, which is a little bit disgusting because you'll use a face mask for 15 hours straight and you'll be sleeping the whole time, and it's just, I don't even want to remember that. But make sure to bring some sanitizer with you as well. The flight is not social distance at all. I have 2 people beside me. I sat in the aisle seat and they were there the whole time, so it wasn't their fault. And I feel like the airline is also struggling during this time, so I understand, but just be super duper careful. So the flight was 15 hours, and then once you get to the Philippines, there are a lot of forms to fill in. 30 minutes before you land, they will give you a bunch of forms. I think it was six forms in total. Health declaration form, custom, arrival form, and a lot more that I don't even remember. Just fill that in. They will give you time to fill that in before you land, and then welcome to the Philippines. So once you get out of the airline, you'll go directly to the testing booth to get tested for COVID-19. It's an RT-PCR test, which means 2 swabs on the nose and on your throat. You have to pay for it. They accept cash, and credit card, debit card, and even GCash, which predominantly Filipinos have. It's like PayPal, I guess, but yeah, so they accept a lot of like payment terms. Once you get tested, you'll go straight to immigration, and then you will be able to pack your bags, but you wouldn't be able to go out of the airport if you don't have a hotel transfer. So there's like a booth. They will verify your booking, your hotel booking, and then they will give you like a certificate, which you will give once you get to the you will give like the form that you filled in the airport, in the airplane rather, and then they will just sign it and they will get it, and then you're free to go out and wait for your transfer. So one thing that I struggle with was I don't have a Philippine number, so good thing I found someone who helped me contact the hotel transfer. So if you have an extra phone with a Philippine number, that's very helpful. If not, maybe find someone at the airport to help you contact your driver. So that happened, and I was transported to the hotel. And here are some clips of me in the hotel. I'll just like swift the video. So I am in the hotel room na. Tran. So I'm staying at the hotel. I'm gonna do a room tour later, but oh my god, ang pangit ko. No hilamos, no toothbrush, no ligo since yesterday. More than 24 hours actually. So, sobrang pangit ko. And then, tumami yung mask ni ko kasi I've been wearing a mask since I left home. So, mga 10 p.m. ng New York time. So, it's been more than 24 hours. So, I need to clean up, but I'm staying at the hotel. And this place is so nice. Okay, so that's like a room tour and like a overview of how I did. But yeah, so that's how you get there. So you'll be in the hotel until you get your COVID results. So the COVID results are less than 24 hours and 24 hours at most. Mine was I got mine around like 15 to 18 hours. I remember it was like middle of the early morning, around 2 or 3 a.m. And then once you get that result, you need to apply for a certificate of quarantine. Whew. It's also a whole lot of process. You have to go to this like quarantinecertificate.com and then fill in all the details and attach your passport photo and then your COVID results, I believe. And then it took me some time before I got it. I sent a form to that website and it took like hours and hours, but I haven't gotten a certificate yet. So what I did was just I sent an email attaching my COVID results, my passport, and I think there's one more thing that they require, but I sent over those, I think my hotel booking, and then they got back to me about 15 minutes. So once I got that, I checked out and I am free to go back home to my family. So that's going to the Philippines and actually going out of the Philippines. So I took a short break and listed down some of the things that I experienced during my stay in the Philippines. So there are some circumstances that you need to consider. Number one, all establishments check your temperature before you get in. They have sanitizers at the entrance to make sure that you're all sanitized before you come in. And then they will also ask you to fill in your information for contact tracing. Everything else is open. Malls, restaurants, hospitals, of course, grocery stores, a lot more. Everything else, I don't think there are things that are closed, but everything else is open. But as I've said, they will ask for your information, temperature, and sanitize your hands before you come in. And make sure you have your face mask and your face shield like all the time, even at a small establishment. Even a 7-Eleven asks you to put on your face shield before you come in. And they're like social distance officer or social distance ambassadors around, which will check if you are social distance and if you have your mask correctly, your face mask correctly used. So just make sure to follow guidelines. They will reject you from coming in if you don't have a face shield at all. So make sure to follow protocols. I can't count how many times we had to buy a face shield because we forgot our face shield in the car. So kudos to me. But good thing it was actually cheaper in the Philippines than here in the States. It's just, I think, 10 to 20 pesos. Also, although there are a lot of like stations where you can sanitize your hands, it's good to have like a small sanitizer hanged on your bag or like a sanitizer inside your bag, whatever, Just so every time you touch something, you'll just sanitize and sanitize and sanitize. That's important. What else? I think also one important thing, as I've said, transportation was pretty hard. So I got around by Ubers. They don't have Ubers, Grab rather. Got around by using Grab. Grab can accept. Grab has cashless payments, card payments in the Philippines, and taxis. Just make sure that you sanitize all the time. So that's basically it. Restaurants are also open for indoor dining, so I was able to go out and meet friends at a restaurant, but it should be social distance. Other than that, I think you're all set to go to the Philippines. Shouldn't be worried about not enjoying your stay, but just be sure to be careful. One other thing, I think with the new strain of the virus, things may have been a little bit strict, but so far I haven't heard any difference on the protocols yet. I think they're in GCQ, which was the status when I was there, so it's still the same, I believe. Just stay tuned on the news if that will be different. We're now on to the last part of this video, which is going back to New York. So my flight was supposedly on the 6th because PAL used to have 2 flights a week going to JFK, but then they changed it right when the travel ban to a lot of countries were implemented, which includes the US. So foreign nationals, US citizens cannot go to the Philippines, I think. But yeah, so it got changed and they all only fly every Friday to JFK. So my flight was moved to Friday, which was January 8th. Okay, so now comes important things. I believe you don't need to get tested before you fly to New York, but there's this test out option that Kumo implemented if you don't want to quarantine yourself for 14 days. I think it's now 10 days, but just to make sure it's 14 days. So I went for that option. So I got tested 3 days before my flight. So the test out option requires you to get tested 3 days prior to flight, at least 3 days prior to flight. And upon arrival, you have to get tested on the 4th day. So once you get to New York, 1 to 3 days, and then the 4th day, you can test again. If both turned out negative, you are free to go out. So that's the option that I took. So I'm in my 2nd day back in New York, so tomorrow's my 3rd day. So on Tuesday, I can get tested again, and once I'm negative, I can actually go out. But if you don't want to have that option, you have to stay at your place for 10 days or 14 days, I believe. I'll insert the quarantine or the protocols, the link that I followed down below. And yeah, so I got tested at the Philippine Airlines Learning Center. It's a partner of Philippine Airline, obviously, and they give you an assurance of getting your test results 24 hours within 24 hours after getting tested. So I got mine in less than 24 hours, which was negative, so I was confident to fly. Same protocols while you're in the airport, face shield and face mask. And one thing that surprised me the most when I got to the airport in the Philippines, where there are a lot of security check-ins. Of course, you have to get a security check-in going inside the airport, and then at the check-in counters, they will ask you to open your suitcase, your check-in suitcase, just to check if there are any narcotics or drugs, whatever, powder that is illegal, and they will just test like a paper, and then if you're clear, you can check in and then go to immigration and another security check-in, which I thought was the last one, but before boarding to the plane, there's another security check-in you actually have to take your shoes off, your gadgets and stuff, and you're free to go inside the airplane. So another things to keep in mind, powders that are 35 milligrams above are not allowed. Of course, liquid for carry-on baggage, liquids that are 100 ml, that are above 100 ml are not allowed. And just some basic protocols that you have to consider. You already know that, no aerosols, no batteries and stuff, but yeah, same thing. And then once I got into the airplane, flew to New York, and once you get to JFK, no people are checking in before you go out, so you're just basically free to go out. No one will check if you fill in the form or something, but I was very obedient, so I filled in the health declaration form before I flew. And once I get to my apartment, the next day I got a text from the New York State quarantine something, and they said they will call me, they'll give me a surprise call, or someone would knock on my door, which I have to answer, or else I'll get fined for not following protocols. But yeah, that's it. Nobody has called me yet, but I'm just being obedient and wait for the 4th day before I go out and get tested. And yeah, that's basically it. I'm still in the process of waiting. That's why I just made this video, just to kill time, you know what I'm saying. But I definitely had a great time back in the Philippines. I wish I could have gotten more time with my family. 3 weeks was not enough, but it was one of the best 3 weeks that I had in 2020 and in the beginning of 2021. I know it's pretty hard to travel nowadays, but we all have some ways to meet our family. But if you have a pre-existing condition, and if you are most likely to get COVID because of your situation, please don't travel. It's better to be safe. There are other ways to see your family, like video calls, or sending gifts, sending care packages, but don't risk your health just to push things that you like. I was quite hesitant to travel as well, but I had the means, and I can say that I'm pretty healthy, but we're not sure of what would happen. So just make sure to be careful. Only travel if you think you have all the means and you are healthy enough to travel. So that's my tip. But all the travel hassle was worth it. All the expenses was worth it. It was my first trip back home after working abroad for more than a year, and it was all worth it. I am so happy, and I hope all of my friends, or all of the people who've seen this video who went back to the Philippines or are planning to go back to the Philippines would make this video very helpful to you guys. And yeah, that's it. Be safe, wear your mask, sanitize all the time, and send some love to your families abroad. I know it's a hard time, but we all have our ways to remember and to send them some love and care. That's it. Bye.